Welcome to the Wellness at Work podcast, brought to you by the Learning and Development Projects at Silberman School of Social Work, Hunter College. This is a series of conversations designed to inspire wellness in helping professionals. Our conversations will focus on understanding the importance of self-care, reducing trauma, and bringing to listeners new ideas and practices that promote wellness at work and in your professional life. Welcome to our show today. We are recording. Go for it.
I didn't click OK yet.
Well, it's too late. I'm in charge. I'm the producer. So we hit record. We're good. We're going.
I didn't take it as
I'm sorry, Jeff. I'm sorry. Hey, Son, do you need to ask the question or what again for?
No, he doesn't.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
I'm associate producer.
The translation is controller. Okay. So,
Hey! I'm gonna tell you like I tell my staff. It's my shit.
Oh, okay. And here we are, right back at the loving place. Okay. I took it to mean something more drastic and not positive. I took it to mean something meaning that the extent of what's happening could only be compared to mythic times.
Okay. Thanks, Jeff. Eric, what do you think? What did you get from that, Eric? When I said we live in mythic times.
Be careful, because he's the controller.
Oh yeah, I know. He's a controller and an awesome baseball player, from what I hear.
Apparently,
mythic story still yet to be told about his baseball career. Oh,
and also a part-time formatter.
oh yeah. Base and bullet points, but no.
Oh snap!
Shots fired.
But actually, what just comes to mind is that not so much living in mythic times, but no, let me rephrase that. Yes, living in mythic times, but not that it's something new. If I just think about history in general, like a lot of things or patterns for me is like it's the same. It's not the same, but there's a pattern to it. So in mythic times, when you say that, and again, this is just what comes up, is that maybe there is more of a in I don't know if any of you guys have seen Ghostbusters, the first one, but the ghosts or whatever from the underworld started to reveal themselves and show themselves above ground in the earth, which called out the Ghostbusters to come. And when the Ghostbusters come out and they get the nice car and the fancy sirens and whatever utilities that they need, they realize that this sludge or this spiritual underworld or whatever that's creating the ghosts and the goblins or whatever is basically, it's been brewing under the surface of New York City for a very long time. It's just that now something spurred it to actually become on the surface where people are actually encountering it and recognizing it. And there are people who feel as though the Ghostbusters, can't believe I'm using this, the Ghostbusters who are feel called and compelled to confront what's been brewing under the surface for centuries. So for me, when I think about what you say, we're living in mythic times, I can see that, but I also kind of see it from a sense of these are things that have been brewing, patterns that have been there for a while. I mean, in different forms and different, periods of anarchy and periods of disruption and periods of chaos. But I believe that at this point, maybe um, maybe there's a sense of calling for more people to recognize, or certain people to recognize, that this is something that needs to be confronted, because if it's not confronted, then you could have ghosts and goblins taking over, and then it gets out of control, and then people wondering, well, what happened? Well, the signs have been there all along. And maybe it's just a matter that some people are becoming more sensitive to what's
Mm.
there, or they're feeling a sense of something is not right. There's a certain smell in the air that's not normal. There's the
Mhm.
potential of various disruptions that could really impact mankind and womankind or humankind. So yeah, so that's what I just think that it's not something that's new, but it's something that may be coming to the surface, and certain people may be called to actually deal with it, like the Ghostbusters. But again, that's just, you know, I don't know what Ghostbusters just came to mind.
Wow, that's cool. For everybody's response, what would be interesting is to have the listeners, wow, write down what they think before we respond. What they think.
So why don't we do that?
So at the end of each one of our episodes, we have the ability to take feedback, and we can make that offer to listeners of the show, because this show will exist in perpetuity. So people will be finding this years from now, on whatever platform it is that they listen to podcasts on. And so we'll go ahead and we'll put folks' email addresses, and we'll direct all those emails to Kwame, and we'll just hey, we'll just have people just sort of email you and start filling up your inbox. Your inbox is gonna get full. we'll put it right in the show notes.
That's it. Get for asking that question. That's right.
Okay,
That'll set you straight.
and I'm assuming you were just joking.
uh
I didn't
no,
hear a joke.
I that was I was deadly serious. I'm Gen X. I don't joke around. I'm deadly serious.
So we're not sending him to. Well, where should we? We could.
No, we can't.
No, not to him, because
No,
he would respond to all of them.
we do actually have a we have a Google email that goes along with this show,
Yeah.
where we can send those to. So
Yeah.
we'll direct listeners
And
to
then
that.
we can send you the most juicy ones.
There you go.
Okay, I mean, I don't have all the answers. We all, everybody can
We'll send
respond.
everybody the juicy.
Yeah, yeah. That's bringing it full circle. That's the beauty of the alchemy method, where everybody's the teacher.
Mhm.
We all learning from one another. Just listening to everybody. Um, just what you guys are saying, and just thinking about myths. And wow, myths are stories that have never been but will always be. Okay. And so just thinking about, here again, your responses to what do you think I meant when I said living in mythic times. And basically, uh, here again, there's no right or wrong answers, however you take it. For me, when I said it, um, here again, I'm 68 years old. I was born in 1958, um, all black neighborhood, Akron, Ohio. And first images that I saw, that I recall on TV, was seeing the coloreds walk down the street, and with the water hoses being put on them, the dogs, and the
In
people with
Mississippi.
the, yeah, yeah. That's my first images that I recall, and just everything I saw on TV back then. We were butlers, slaves, clowns, uh, and to just see to just see what's happening in the world now, uh, to me, it's
Recalls that.
unbelievable. What'd you say,
Yeah.
Jeff? What'd you say, Jeff?
It recalls that.
Yes, very much so, and it's just hard to believe.
Mhm.
that it's hard to believe, but then again, it's not. Okay, then again,
Yeah,
it's not. When you look at patterns and you look at you
yeah.
you look at you look at patterns in America. So and I'm you should have known it was coming. We should have we
Oh,
should have
yeah.
known it was coming.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, well, that's really positive. We're going to start a podcast. Okay, let's liven it up a
Okay,
little.
okay. Well, no. So that's interesting too, Jeff, because when Dunya, you said you didn't want to use the word hope, and wow, to me, and so I was going to ask you why didn't you want to use the word hope, and I think I mentioned this before. I don't know if it was here or someplace. I know I've mentioned it before, but in the youth we worked with, um, what like I can't remember what. No, I did it with our second core group. I asked them all the myths. And here again, for 7 years, after 7 years, they go through about 23, 25 myths. All right. And I asked them to look at what were the common themes that they saw in the myths. And then tried to have them just pick out one from all the common themes that they saw. For me, the one that stood out to me the most about the myths was hope. Myths
Mhm.
give us hope, you know. Uh, yeah, they give us hope. Um, So, and while Hassan, too, you were saying about not your generation not being able to see the rewards of it. Um,
But that's okay. That's the part that always gets missed. See, it's not a tragedy. It's
yeah,
actually a heroic epic.
yes, yeah, yeah. When I was going through the rites, the one thing we talked about, you plant the seeds, for the tree to grow. You're not necessarily going to see the fruits of the tree, okay? But then, how are we defining seed? How are we defining seed? Because you from us, if you talk about in the spiritual world, then you can look and you can see it. Okay, you can see what you help create. So here again, that's how are we defining seed?
Well, a couple of things. One, I would say, and to Eric's point, Eric, thank you for picking Ghostbusters as a comic book guy.
Yeah.
Thank you for talking about Ghostbusters. I appreciate that.
This is just not right. This is all.
It's not going how you expected it to go, Jeff.
I need it to be linear, and it's like Ghostbusters. And then somebody's talking about the 13th Warriors or something, and then you're talking about holy shit. Talking for Thursday. Okay.
Can I say something though, Kwame, about why I was hesitant about using hope? And this is very transparent on my end, but probably no surprise to the group this year. I am an extremely gullible person, and why that is because I'm so hopeful.
Wow.
I really kind of anchor myself on always seeing the good and the best, and it's really hard till this day for me to sit with everything that I see. But what keeps me going is to say no. There's hope, there's good, there's all this stuff, right? I have been recently very critical of myself because my darn hope has gotten in the way of seeing the reality of things. And this kind of ties into the conversation that we're having about this topic. I think that happened to all of us, where we kind of just hoped that this wouldn't happen again, or that we did enough, or whatever, however it is that we want to frame it, on the basis of, because it's always hard to do that work. And it's hard to maintain it and it's hard to sustain it. And so most recently, and it's been doing something to my outlook in life, but I wouldn't say that it's a bad thing. I want to almost leave no stone uncovered, because I desperately am hanging on to hope. But I don't want my hope to be the thing that keeps me veiled, that keeps me hoping for a future that I forget I have to work hard to make into a reality. And so that sort of that liminal space or whatever it is, well, I don't know what to call it. I'm in that between place where I see this and I see that. I have to make sense of this, and to say that everything that you do doesn't matter. It's like everything you do, even like I know this is a silly example, but choosing not to use Amazon. I know that I'm just one darn person using a very accessible product out there. But choosing to say, you know what, it doesn't matter in the larger scheme of things, but it matters to me. I want to make a decision not to do this or that, like just being that level of intentional, because I have to believe, to your point, I have to see it differently. I can't just it's and Hassan, when you talked about not getting the thanks, oh, thank God. This is for the good of all. Who the heck cares? Take all the credit for what it's worth. And then finding it so challenging until I come to this space and remember, whoa, I'm not the protagonist of this story. This is a collective. And this is why this is so important to me, this idea of coming together and talking about myths and unpacking it and hearing other people's perspective. Because, you know, if you look at it from a singular lens, I think it's so daunting and so massive. But then all of a sudden, and then you're reminded, you remember, oh, that's right. Whew. Been there, done that. Let me see what worked, and let me also not keep doing what didn't work. So it's almost like a really interesting reset button for me that helps me remember and not stay in I think it was Jeff that used this word, or maybe it was Lou, like in the pit of it or in the belly of the slave ship. I think it was what Lou said. And I don't know why I connected it to something that you said, Jeff, a couple days ago when we talked, or yesterday. But when you're in the depth of despair, or when you think that this is so bad, boy, those stories come in handy. And this notion of even if you are a pessimist, that is hopeful.
You talked about cynicism, pessimism. Yeah.
Yeah, that there's something hopeful about that. You're choosing not to drink the Kool-Aid.
So this is what I was getting ready to go to with Eric, because Eric and Dunia, you've both mentioned something, in Jeff just there with pessimism and cynicism. The demons that the Ghostbusters are seeking to defeat, okay, in a philosophical sense, in a philosophical, cultural, social sense, right now, at this moment in time, here are the demons. I can identify them and name them. And when you name them, you freeze them. And then when you freeze them, you can deal with them. So here I'm going to name them: nihilism, existential dread, despair, pessimism, cynicism. Those are the big five demons that have haunted our world for the last 120 years, and has specifically had their day the last 25 years in our culture. And as a person with a warrior mindset, which is what I am, I'm a person with a warrior mindset. I will not allow the enemy to have more than one vote. And don't get me wrong, I've fallen prey to cynicism. I have fallen prey to pessimism. I have fallen prey to existential dread. And yet, when I look at what is happening, and this is where I was going, Kwame. When I look at what I see out here in the hinterland where I am, right, I see the beginnings of warrior mindsets popping up all over the place. People who are saying, to paraphrase from Star Trek: The Next Generation, this line here and no farther. We're not going any further because we've fallen back. We've drawn a line and then we fall back. We draw another line and they advance and then we fall back. And people are finally individually and collectively saying, this is it. This is the line and no further. We screw our courage to the post here. And it doesn't take that many of us. This is the other thing. We think that we need, oh God, I love the phrase. I love the joke from the comedian Joey Diaz. Part of our problem in this country is we think we need all these people. We don't need all these people. We need 5 or 10 dedicated people. That's all we need. That's it. And then we can just take over everything. That's all we need, brother. We don't need more than that. And so Dunia, I absolutely, as I said before we started recording, the 13th generation, I think you and I are probably closer to being in the same generational cohort. I think I'm probably closer to you than to Eric, and I'm definitely closer to you than Kwame and Jeff.
Okay. Wow.
I just said generational cohort. I just said cohort.
Shit just keeps. Oh my God. What? What the fuck? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you are closer. You're closer to the door.
Closer. And I think for us, being that valley of humility in between two mountains of generational heroism, right? The way it walks out for us is in that warrior mindset. The way it walks out for us is a rejection of the demons of nihilism and of existential dread and of pessimism and cynicism. And don't get me wrong, we've sharpened cynicism to a real sharp point because we had to. That's the only way we could get ahead. And now, as the sun begins to set on us and begins to rise on other places, it's time for us to do what the wise folks do, which is we pass along the shield and the spear. But we do it to people who also have the same mindset, to people who also have the same posture. And again, that's another place where I get a little thrill when I talk about this, because this is hope. This is hopeful. This means the whole thing keeps going, despite whatever the current circumstances are. Current circumstances are temporary. I'm playing a long game here. I'm playing a 500-year long game here, kids. The whole thing's got to keep going, and it will, if we just screw our courage to the post. This line and no further. And we take the wisdom of the past, we incorporate it into the current, and we pass it on to the future. And that's what myths do. That's what they've always done. That's the whole game.
Culturally speaking, that's not how I experience Americans. I experience Americans as being resistant to the lessons of history. And when Dunia were talking about, I think you can't be so, I don't think for me that I could totally lift the veil, because it would be too much to take. It would just be the aspect of it. And so I guess the two things that I think about is that, and how cyclically, in a sense, if you think about McCarthy, if you think about the history of Black and brown people in this country prior to that, I mean, I think that I feel like we're caught in a cycle, and every time it rotates through, its toxicity is different, but still toxic.
Eric, what's on your mind? Thanks, Jeff
Um,
and Dunia, and Hassan.
um, uh, I was just thinking about a conversation I had with an older man, older relative, um, who 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 called, and he was very kind of erratic about this was when the nurse was murdered in Minnesota
No,
by the ICE agents, and then just before that, the woman who was
murdered.
murdered as well. And something had happened up in Minnesota, and this person called me and was like, Eric, I just want to warn you, you need to get out of the United States right now. You need to get someplace else because things are just going bad and blah, blah, blah. And, and this person had called me before um, to like, you need to get out, blah, blah, blah. And you and your wife need to whatever. But this particular time he called, um, he was going to send me some videos of something that had happened that he saw on YouTube or something of somebody being dragged by chains by agents or something, blah, blah, blah. And I bring that up because the conversation I had with him was, this is not new, and it shouldn't be new to you either because you come from an older generation. Your your father was a sharecropper in the South. I grew up in the South. What's happening now for me is very concerning. It is very uh it's horrible, but it doesn't surprise me. And I told him I was like, I kind of what Kwame was saying, like I grew up with them. And I'm not saying I don't want to say a color, but I grew up with that mentality. I grew up with like if I grew up hearing the conversations that they did not have, people of this mentality did not have publicly, but they had privately amongst themselves of
What?
what they thought, what they were planning to do if they had more power, and how they intended to use their power to manipulate the public in order to, you know, create what cynicism, um, division, to all these different things. So I was like, it's not surprising to me. And I told him that I'm doing as a man and as a husband what I can do to protect my family, to make sure that my wife is okay, I'm okay, our future children will be okay. Um, and also to find out what is my space in this myth or this time or whatever that I've been called to do. Because I can't save everybody. I can't, I don't have a fire truck that I can put out every fire. I can't live in a constant state of anxiety because that's not going to do me or my wife or my loved ones or my calling any service. I have to be clear on what am I called to do in this moment to contribute, and what can I do to protect the people that I've been called to protect. But I cannot allow external forces to dictate my decisions. I say that because I feel that whole thing of hope that Dunya was talking about, where it's like
That
I
thing.
just
That thing called hope.
that thing called hope, where it's like if I if I believe that, to go to the Matrix, if I believe that the Sentinels are all powerful, they're going to take over the world, there's nothing that we can do, then I'm going to say, Morpheus, hey man, I'll just take this pill and chill because they're going to do what they're going to do. But I'm more of the mindset of, I'll take the other pill I'll figure out what is my calling in this moment and how am I supposed to show up, and recognize that the Sentinels are just basically ones and zeros who are writing code, who are showing you this thing in order to maintain their power. I'll say this. I'll say this. I think I researched um oh my gosh, in Illinois, Chicago, the Black Panther. He just skipped my mind, but they did a movie on him. Messiah, Judas and the Black Messiah. Um,
Yep.
Gosh, what was his name? I can't remember his name, but he was the leader of the Black Panther Party in Illinois, I believe.
Oh,
But anyway, the government assassinated him and his wife, his pregnant wife, in their house. And when I researched it, it was out of fear because I cannot remember his name. It was
Is it
because,
Fred Hampton or no?
yes, thank you, Fred Hampton.
Mhm.
It was because he had started to look beyond Black folks, and he started going to white supremacists, white nationalists. He started going to disenfranchised white folks, and was saying, you know what? I know you hate us and you want to destroy us, whatever, but look at the commonalities between us, and recognize that we are stronger together than we are apart, and recognize that there is a bigger system that is intentionally seeking to keep us divided so that we don't become collective in recognizing that the forces want us to be divided. It's and that was a bigger threat than just these Black folks got some guns and we're going to fight for Black folks. King started talking about the Vietnam War economics, disenfranchised people before he was assassinated. He wasn't just talking about civil rights for African Americans. He was talking about economic empowerment and recognizing the systems and the structures that are keeping not just Black people down, but white folks down, brown folks down. That is a
everybody.
bigger threat.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know, and I'll end with this. I don't know if it was you who said this or somebody else who said this, is that once the people in the castle start recognizing that the people on the other side of the castle walls are talking with each other, that's when they get scared. But as long as they can keep the people on the other side of the castle wall fighting each other, they're happy, because those people then don't recognize that it's the people in the castle who are actually keeping all of them in this space of feeding off of this vitriol. So, I just, yeah, that's what came to mind.
I said a variation of this to Jeff the other day, Eric, in
See what
a
I have to go through.
in a conversation the other day after Jeff received an email from Dunia in regards to a particular course that she's going to. I'm not going to go through all that, but it's some information that she received. She sent it to Jeff, and then Jeff and I had a conversation. I have not seen what it is that Dunia sent. It doesn't matter. But Eric, what I told Jeff was exactly what you just said, almost word for word. Because the thing is, when it doesn't matter how we get to the clearing at the end of the path, right or left. The nonsense with right and left in this country is exactly that, nonsense. It's not a right or left problem. It's a how do you get to the clearing at the end of the path problem. And then once you're in that clearing, and I look at Dunia, and I look at Eric, and I look at Jeff, and I look at Kwame, and I look at all of our listeners, and I go, oh, you all got here too. Huh. Maybe we should start talking with each other. And that's where you begin to see truly, I'm going to use the R word here, revolutionary change. That's what happens when mythic times then filter down to, dare I say, the hoi polloi and the quote unquote little people. And that's I think that's the moment that we are in right now. We can all feel it in our various ways. Again, different places coming into that same clearing at the end of the path. Online interaction allows us to do that a little bit quicker, but it's happening organically offline as well. And that's what I'm seeing.
So Eric, when you said they get scared, do you think they get scared or they just react?
I think they react out of fear.
I don't know that it's fear.
I think that, oh, what do you think it is?
Protection. They're just protecting what they have, but I don't think it's fear. I think the system is so well developed that it
Mm,
can shift and it can morph. And sometimes they just need to erase. And sometimes they can just invite you in for some crumbs. And sometimes they can do both. And sometimes they can do other things. But I mean, it may look like fear because the lower parts of the people in the castle look a little crazy. And maybe they are fearful. But the kings and queens in the high end of the castle are I don't and particularly now, I think that there's so much more power that they have. I don't think it's fear. I think it's just, okay, here's what needs to happen. Or, this is interesting. Black Lives Matter. Let's see how long that will last. I mean, I think that I don't, I really do want the heroic narrative that they are afraid, but I don't get that. What I get is, we'll just need to shift. And sometimes they can just wait it out.
Well, this is what I mean by, okay, fear. Now, I still do believe it's the fear, and they react out of fear, even if it's become an unconscious fear where they don't even recognize that they're seeking to protect
Mhm.
themselves. And the reason I bring it to relate it to a myth that Kwame talked about, I can't remember the name of the myth, but it was a myth where the white snake, where a servant brought in a
Mhm.
covered dish, and Kwame, you had to help me out here because I don't know if I remember it correctly, but he brought in a covered dish to the king, and the king would eat this covered dish in private, and nobody was supposed to look up under the covered dish. Now, this is just for me, and this goes the whole thing about alchemy is that you can have different interpretations or whatever. But
Mhm.
what comes up for me in relation to that is that the king was afraid of anybody realizing what was under the covered dish.
Mhm.
That's why he ate it in private. Nobody could look under the covered dish. But then at one point, I don't want to give too much of the myth away because Kwame may use it, but um, the servant looked under the covered dish and saw that it was the snake and that the king basically was eating this snake every day in order to get, I think Kwame said it's knowledge of, or being able to know the languages of all things and all
Mhm.
people and whatever.
Mhm. Yeah.
So to me, when I think of terms of fear and reaction, it's, I know all things, I have all power, I'm the king, but I'm still relying on this covered dish to be brought to me,
Mhm.
whether it's from a black, a brown,
Mhm.
an Asian person that's bringing this to me, as long as they don't know what's under the covered dish, I'm good. The
Mhm.
fear is that for me, the fear is that somebody's going to find out that I'm relying on this snake in order to give me this power. As long as people don't have that knowledge, I'm good.
Mhm.
Just like as long as people can't read or write, slaves
Mhm.
will keep the same slave mentality because they
Mhm.
can't read a book. The
Mhm.
fear is if they learn how to read and write for themselves, even though I am the master of this plantation, I cannot take that possibility that they will realize the power that is in the words of the book, the power that is in understanding the systems that they know. So that's what I'm saying is like it's
Mhm.
yeah. I've talked. I've
No, no,
talked.
so I was thinking, the other thing I was thinking, so when Dunia was talking about a cynicism or pessimism, I was also thinking that there's another part in that universe, which is skepticism. And I wonder if that makes sense to you, is it skeptical as opposed to cynical, as opposed to pessimism? And Eric, I'm processing what you were saying, but I was also like, I was thinking, because I still see you and Kwame and Eric as sort of the agents of change, or hopeful or hope or change or hopeful change. So it's interesting because I see you all differently, or I experience you different in how you hear, or how I hear you experience yourselves. Well, not Kwame because of the baseball thing, but you and Eric definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Kwame, I want to ask a question. As a person who's not been through alchemy, I want to ask a question because several things have been brought up, even in Eric's example of the snake, right? So the myth of the snake. So snakes, Luciferian deception, lies. What is the role of the trickster in that stack in myth?
Thanks. Wow. The role of the trickster is to level the playing field. All right. To level the playing field. The role of the trickster is to steal from the rich and give to the poor. All right. Uh, the uh, the trickster is the spook who sat by the door. All right. Okay. And it's coming. It's coming. Um, I wrote a few things down just listening to everybody. All right. Um, we're talking about this pests.
Is this the podcast?
What's
Sorry.
that?
Is this the podcast? Hello, Mr.
Yeah,
Producer.
this is the show. This is the entire show. This
Oh
is
my
the whole
God, and
thing.
I've used the word fuck and shit. Oh,
It's okay. We're going to bleep you. It's fine. You're going to get bleeped.
Uh, just the pessimism and all that. Schopenhauer said, "Life is something that just should not have been." All right, and then but Campbell said, "But we have to say yes to it. We have to say yes to it." All right. Jung, I can't remember who said it. Might have been Jeff or Dunia. I can't remember. Um, wow, how do we make a difference? How do we make a difference when it's just seems so vast? It was either Jung or Campbell, I think I said this before, who said in order to make the world a better place, you do what you do best. Okay? And it's that whole thing about the starfish lying on the beach, thousands of them, and the guy throw one back in the ocean. He said that's not gonna make a difference. It made a difference to that one, okay. And all it takes, like Jesan said, we don't need a whole lot. We don't need a whole lot. We only need about 5 or 10 people, okay. And it'll start with one. It'll start with one. And just keep chipping away. Think I said this before. How you eat an elephant, one bite at a time. One bite at a time. Okay, so and another thing has a sign was saying. I think a lot of generations we don't get to see. Our ancestors didn't get to see. the fruits of their sacrifices. We are our ancestors' wildest dreams. Okay. So and it doesn't matter. It does not matter who moves the logs. What matters is that the logs get moved. All right. So it ain't really, and this is for them, those in power. They see it crumbling. They see it crumbling. All right. And I don't think we're not doing this for us. We're doing this for our children and our grandchildren. And that's what they're afraid of. They see it crumbling. They see it crumbling. All right. And so is the system, it's a hell of a system they've built. Ain't no doubt. It's a hell of a system they built, but it can crumble. It's based on lies. It's based on lies, okay? And then once you pull that one lie, it's gonna all start to fall. And they know that. And they know that. And that's why they have to keep us divided. They have to keep us divided. I remember going to the Million Man March, seeing all these beautiful brothers. Not one incident. Not one incident. And they trying to tell you it's these small numbers when they know good and well all they have to do is take a picture of a square footage and see how many's there, and then you multiply it. Hey, whenever people of color come together, and it don't necessarily just have to be people of color, people of a like mind, whenever we come together, we can move mountains. They know that. They know that. So they have to keep us divided. That's one reason I don't really watch the news. Okay, the news is in the media. It's made to divide us. Okay, it's made to scare us. All right. So nah, I ain't falling for that bullshit. Okay, and every day, every day. All right, every day. Just like in the myth of the killing virtue. The cub puts his paw print in the paw print of his mother's, and he does it every day. And one day I will be strong enough. Okay, so hey, just keep chipping away. Keep chipping away. Eric, you said something reminds me of Plato's allegory of the cave. All right, and one of the challenges is we've in the words of Malcolm X, we've been bamboozled. Okay, we've been bamboozled. Okay, we done fell for the bullshit. We done fell for the bullshit. All right, and we just got to convince a number of us, okay, to just keep chipping away. So nah, hope for me here again. Hope. And while the irony of that, what you said is beautiful, is because you have so much hope. It's because you have so much hope, you don't want to admit that you have hope. And that's cool, but we're not going to lose that hope. We ain't going to lose it. We're going to be cool. We might not see it. We might not see it, but our children might not see it, but our grandchildren or our great-grandchildren, okay, and we'll be able to look down and say, wow, we played a part in that. Okay, so hey, I ain't gonna give up. Okay, now trust me, there's days where I'm like, hey, I'm done. Okay, and hey, I was tired. Okay, but when death comes to find me, it's gonna find me alive. All right.
When we,
Oh,
Eric,
yeah,
go
go
ahead,
ahead.
and then okay, because I got a question here. So we've got a few more minutes left here on our third show, our third episode of the Alchemy podcast, a wide-ranging episode that's covered a lot of different ground.
Well, that's real fucking kind. Wide-ranging.
Wide-ranging, and very hopeful, I think. So one of the things I think that we probably should discuss with the last few minutes that we have is how can myths help us with self-care? How can they help us get to a place as helping professionals, right, who are helping other people go on this journey, and who are guiding folks along on this mythical journey? How can the fact that we're living in mythic times, right? How can the recognition of myth help us engage in helping others? How does that work?
Wow, good question. I think I would like for I know how it works for me, but since Jeff, Dunia, and Eric went through the training, how would you guys define how myth can help? Jeff, you the oldest man.
Holy shit. It's like some ageist nightmare. Like all the ageism that went on in this shit. Okay, fine. Here's how I think it helps.
Excuse me, Jeff. Excuse me, Jeff. In the words of Richard Pryor, you don't get to be old being no fool. All right. So it's all good, brother.
So, I've been talking to I'm talking to Dunia, and Eric actually wrote one of the things that keeps your brain vital and helps that in terms of wellness is the sort of rewiring that I feel alchemy has helped me or has inspired in me. Rewire or taking on the challenge of sitting in with concepts and ideas that are not easily unfolded and with different people's opinions and ideas that are not like my own. And so I think that is incredibly, I think for me, I think it's, I mean, obviously I'm sort of not talking about neuroplasticity, but it's, I think that this kind of, because I think I've returned to a lot of what my mother was talking about when she was working in civil rights, and then then doing gave me these classes on Marxist theory, and it was like, oh God, this is what she was talking about. And then I understood part of alchemy is this sort of challenge to the more nihilistic aspects of how we experience capitalism in this. And so I think all of these things for me, um, I think it's very healthy for me to for me to be challenged in this way.
Cool. Thanks, brother. Dunya, how would you say myth helped you? Quote unquote helped.
Oh, absolutely. I think, um, yes, the myth, but the circles, it's the just centering in the alchemy method. It's the ability to come together and Jeff, you already stole my answer, but it's okay, I'll repeat it. It's really the ability to learn from each other, hear a different perspective. And because we're all hearing the same myth, I am fascinated by where people go with it. And that is so promising because this system that we've talked about is 100% trying to get us all on the sameness path. And what this always shows me is how unique we all are and how important every person's perspective is to creating that new future, that new reality. But if we're not talking and we're not listening, then we rob each other from possibilities. And I just think that myths, because they serve as a reminder, they also elicit what might be possible. And all of a sudden, you find yourself dreaming again and thinking about beyond dreaming, how am I going to put this together? So for me, it's really like, how the heck do I get more people involved and engage? And I want to hear your dream because I might want to join it. And then maybe I can also contribute to it. And let's take it on the road. And that's what alchemy has become for me is how do I take this on the road? How do I dream with people? And what happened for me was that I heard a story and I have been able to um, awaken the part of me that was told, no, you have to be like everyone else. Even though my spirit kept trying to box out and say, no, that's not you. That doesn't seem like you. That doesn't sound like you. It was freedom. It was like a freedom. It's like allowing something that cannot be contained free. And I want that experience for everybody that can engage in the alchemy method. Because sometimes I think we're also held in our own minds. And so when you listen to a story, you tap into the child inside of you that gets to visualize the story, that gets to hear the music or the heartbeat of the story. It's just a very oh my gosh, it's such a human experience. You're just listening to a story. And for some reason, being able to do that with other people, you know, awakens something that you've had to put to sleep because it didn't fit in the adult world. And that's really powerful to me.
Wow. Thanks, Dunya. Eric.
Wow, that's yeah, y'all are definitely hard to follow. For me, one of my favorite books is The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, and I see alchemy has helped me to recognize, just like Santiago in that book, that the what I was looking for externally, I always had. Um, but I have to go on a journey to realize that I always had it. And alchemy, through the discomfort, through the listening, through the, as Jeff would say, sitting in the bed and looking at the ceiling and being like what did that mean? Or why is that still like percolating in me? It's that journey that alchemy helps the process, the conversations, the listening to different voices, um, that helps me to deal with my stuff and recognize the wealth, the power, defining what does success look like for me. And that my power, my success, me becoming more attuned to my sense of calling does not have to come at the expense of somebody else losing theirs. Um, and and that's what, and as far as like even in like working in different fields where you may be dealing with trauma exposure, you might be dealing with high stress, so you might be dealing with just hopelessness, all things I've experienced. Alchemy is a process that helps me to step back and see a bigger picture, that it's not just a linear. I think Jeff said this, it's not just like a linear, it's A, B, or C. It could be A, pi, Pythagorean theorem, D, X and O. And somehow it can make sense to empower me to be able to move in this world where success is not determined by how many cases I close or what is the end result, or you know did I make this much money off of this deal. Success can be defined differently, um, and that's something that I can define for myself. I don't need somebody else to define what does success or what does power look like for me. And alchemy really helps me to sit in that, to deal with it, to wrestle with it. And yeah.
Oh no, I don't think I need to say anything.
Jeff, why don't you go ahead and close us out with our last 30 seconds here?
Okay. In sum, the power of Ghostbusters myth and of all the hope of continuing to pursue a heroic narrative, um, aspects of heroism that is really what I heard today, I think, is where Kwame's talking about one starfish at a time can make a difference, and talking about hope, Dunia talking about hope, and Eric talking about finding power. All of these things I think are critical for the kinds of hope and the kinds of success we're looking for in terms of making a change in the world, being the change that we want to see in the world, to quote Gandhi.
Awesome.
Thank you, everybody.